Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Becoming Secure with Magsmindset. I'm so happy that you're here. It's Friday. I am miraculously not jet lagged, although I landed about 24 hours ago after traveling for about 30 hours. I've been at a wedding in Malaysia in Kuala Lumpur with my boyfriend, and it's been an amazing week. I'm so happy. And something that happened on that trip was something that prompted me to create this episode. And there's been this trend going around lately where people are reflecting on 2016 and comparing it to 2026 because it's a 10-year mark. And I can see a lot of people looking back. And I got this question the other day that really was like, oh, I love every piece of this question. And I want to make a whole episode about the answer to that question. And that is, how do you know that you are secure after building your podcast, Becoming Secure with Max Mike? And I was like, I have a real question for that. And it started in 2016, which was like, hey, let's just do this trend. Let me tell you a story, as I love to do, and reflect on what began in 2016 and where am I now, and how is this incident in Kuala Lumpur relevant to any of this. I promise to tie it all together. Okay, 2016. What started for me in 2016 is when my self-help journey began. That is when I intentionally chose to dive into anything I can do to help myself become a stronger, more resilient version of myself. And all of that became very evident when my boyfriend at the time went into the military. Okay. And when he went into the military, I was presented with just how codependent I was, my lack of standing on my own, my lack of ability to be standing on my own 2 feet became just abundantly clear. And I would literally block out every single day on my calendar on the days waiting on him coming back, and make sure that I did not have a moment to myself to be able to think or reflect or anything at all, because I would spiral. It would go into this crazy rabbit hole. And I became so incredibly incapable of self-regulating, to take control and charge of my emotions, to understand the fact that pain is not going to kill you. It is just uncomfortable. And I didn't know that I could learn to get out of it at the time. And that's essentially when my mom introduced me to a book called Be the Boss of Your Own Life. It's written by a Norwegian doctor, psychologist. He has a hypochondria clinic, and he uses a lot of examples from his patients and how you can think your way into catastrophe without it actually making any sense. And I felt so seen and so heard and just completely understood. And I recognized that there are tools that I can pick up in order to help myself become a better self-regulator, and to also become increasingly self-aware, and to have the ability to recognize what's true and what's programming. And that's when I decided that I'm going to make this my mission to understand as much as I possibly can about myself, because if I can help myself, I can help others. And if I can love myself, I might actually get the love that I want, because truly all I ever wanted was to really experience a safe type of love. And at the time I was experiencing anxious type of love, which I would learn about 5 to 6 years later in this journey of mine that started in 2016. It's crazy to me that that's 10 years ago, and I'm about to turn 30. I'm so excited for my 30s. The best is yet to come. I'm gonna marry someone in my 30s. I'm gonna have children in my 30s. I'm gonna continue to do what I love in my 30s, because I position myself perfectly to have the everyday life and live the life right now that I want to live. Of course, I know that it will grow and it will expand and it will look different, but I'm ready for it. I'm so open. I'm ready for every curveball. I'm ready for any surprise. I know that at this point, all things happen together for good. And I am also very intentional about thanking God for all of it already. So I know it's coming my way and I feel really ready for it, all of what it is that I want. And I'm so excited. And my 20s were also so incredibly rewarding. I did so much cool stuff. I started a podcast in my 20s. I wrote a book in my 20s. I loved hard. I got my heart broken even harder. But today at 29, I am so incredibly happy and I am so incredibly peaceful. And that brings me back to the initial question. How do you know that you are secure? I know that I am secure because I feel safe. I feel safe, therefore I am secure. Safe and secure, those go together. I feel safe because I am with someone that brings out the best in me. I am no longer living and improving for the sake of pleasing another individual. I am tapping 100% into my own creativity and creating what I deem valuable and what brings me tremendous joy and what derives value and creates impact. That's what I feel called to do. That's why I'm writing. That's why I'm podcasting. And that's why I'm creating contents. That's why I'm sharing. That's why I'm having all of these conversations with people to understand in what ways are we all similar and in what ways did we have certain backgrounds that shape the way that we think, feel, and act in relationships to others. And I really do believe that all of these episodes provide something for everyone because there are so many different stories and experiences, anything from super dramatic and traumatic to everyone's familiar heartbreak, but the one that is so painful nonetheless, and attachment theory, of course. I'm diving into all of this in all various ways, and in at least one of them, anyone can find something that relates to them. I genuinely believe that, and everyone is sharing so gracefully and so bravely, and I feel so honored to be in the presence of such inspiring people who lived and people who reflected on it and is sharing it with the world. And I think that's incredibly cool. I admire that, and I get to be a part of all of it, and it feels incredible. So I feel safe because I am safe and I'm with someone I can communicate well with, someone I can repair well with. And that is probably the most valuable thing is our ability to always look at what is it that we're trying to accomplish and take ego away and get back on course. Because very often we go into arguments and we want to be right. And even if we're not, we are stubborn and set in our ways and very hyper focused on what our own experience of it is. And we also fail very often in thinking that they understand what we think and they should know how we feel, but they just don't. Being able to stay focused on, we are trying to solve this together as a team, we are not against each other, and to be able to let ego away a little bit and actually go back and apologize to repair. I think the repair part has been tremendous because there's literally nothing that I can say that is wrong as long as I'm always true and honest about what I'm trying to accomplish, which is at the end of the day for us to be happy together. Yeah. I might be derailing a little bit, but let's see. I have some notes just to make sure that I'm staying on track and addressing everything that I want to talk about. Okay. Safety has become safety. My boyfriend called that out. You say safety. It's called safety. Safety is probably the one thing that I value the most right now, just because, man, it's peaceful over here. In the sense that I would spend so much time trying to decode what the other person was thinking about across the world or across like Norway, even when my ex was in the military. I spent so much time being all consumed in what they're doing, what they're thinking, and how they might possibly feel about me, as opposed to just living my own goddamn life, which is a gift, right? I would be all consumed in analyzing every interaction, every conversation, like how I could have said something differently. And that aftermath with all the conversations in the shower, I hope someone can relate. Otherwise, I'm just completely crazy. But all of that's gone now. And one very evident situation that I can call that back to is by talking about a situation that I have experienced many times that is something that I fear, we look towards with so much fear because I associate it with so much pain and I associate it with abandonment. And that is what brings it all back to the story of what happened in Malaysia. And never I had to separate from a partner when being in a long distance relationship, I would just be completely besides myself and just lose myself. And days leading up to the departure would just become increasingly emotional and potent. I would be so freaking vulnerable and nothing would tear me apart. I would cry a lot and the whole ride home, I would be in the bathroom crying so much because I couldn't self-regulate. I really struggled. And the days after coming home, I had to take off work just to prep for being emotional and snapping myself out of it. I would plan for so much misery and set the scene for me indulging in it, essentially. And my mom wants me to be careful about judging myself too hard here because she also said to me the other day that you had a perfectly normal reaction to a very abnormal situation. And that is that I kept being in and out of these relationships that kept on lingering. There was a lot of hope, but there was no commitment, and therefore a lot of insecurity. Like when my ex was in the military, we broke up, but then he kept me on such a short leash, and I was just really reliant on him. I didn't know how to stand on my own 2 feet yet. It's that typical push and pull I see in anxious and avoidant dynamics, and it's incredibly painful. And you essentially know that you are anxious in your relationship or you are avoidant in your relationship when you most genuinely just not feel safe in your dynamic, right? You don't feel safe there. And I didn't feel safe there because I wasn't. And I think if there's anyone out there who just don't feel safe in their relationship, that they genuinely spiral and wonder and analyze and try to find so many answers when you could just address it, kind of, you're probably finding yourself in a dynamic that you shouldn't be in. And I know that nobody wants to hear that shit because I never wanted to hear that shit until I realized that I definitely don't want to continue to repeat the pattern either. So maybe I should be listening to some of those things. And that brings me to one of the things that I want to address, actually, that I find the absolute hardest with recording my podcast or creating my podcast, just the whole aspect of having my podcast. The hardest part about it is that I know that I am creating a lot of value, and I know that the tools that I'm providing, the stories that I'm sharing, the stories that my guests are sharing are all something that could be incredibly helpful to people, and that there are a lot of tools here that anyone could utilize and learn to utilize in order to just be a little bit better at regulating themselves or making better decisions or aligning more to what it is they want and to figuring yourself out better, to getting yourself at a confident place. And I think what I find the hardest is that as much as it is a lot of value there, and I think that when people listen to my episodes, it actually is a lot of value and people like the episodes, but it is also triggering. I think many stopped listening when they got triggered and started to get into this habit of, oh, I have to mentally prepare to be in this episode, to listen to your episode or something, because you know you have to reflect after, for instance. A lot of my friends have said that they stopped listening for that reason, or that they stopped listening so frequently for that reason. But I do know that the most self-aware people, the most, I was going to say power hungry, but that sounds weird because I really mean it in a sense that you're power over yourself, in a sense that you have agency and are able to actually see yourself clearly, even though it's uncomfortable, even though it's scary, even though being self-critical or looking at yourself and not really liking what you find is all really hard. There are people who have been listening to the entirety of my podcast throughout, my friends, and it is the ones who are so hungry to see themselves clearly, to have more agency. And I think they're so brave, they're so cool. And the way that they're coming back to me with everything that they're learning and telling me how they're utilizing it and how it's working in their lives and how it is helping them tremendously. The way that a lot of this content is helping people heal themselves. I look so up to them and I'm so grateful to them because that means that what I'm doing is helpful and it's succeeding. And I could not be happier. I know how hard that is. I know how brave you have to be in order to look yourself in the mirror and acknowledge that you're not who you say you are or who you want to be. To fake it till you make it, I had to tell myself, I had to gaslight myself into to genuinely believing that I could be a loyal person because I had set myself as someone loyal for so long just because I had made mistakes, but I could no longer identify it with it. I created this limiting belief. And yeah, these episodes have taught me so much too, just on the topic of limiting beliefs. I didn't know how many limiting beliefs I had until my episode with Blake Lefko. She had such incredible knowledge. And I think about it a lot, how many things that I have been programmed to believe about myself as truth when it's actually just a false narrative. And the moment I changed the narrative, the outcome changed too. And a huge part of that is my belief in God and my prayers to God. I try to get into the habit of thanking for everything. Before, I used to ask, demand, beg, be more, I hope this will happen narrative, as opposed to thank you for making it happen or thank you for being a step ahead of me. A very typical prayer for me these days is thank you, God, for being a step ahead of me and for already taking care of A, B, C, D, whatever it is. It could be the car you're trying to buy or the loan that you need or the down payment or the negotiation, the job offer. Thank for it to already be happening and be specific about what it looks like to have that. And what is it that you want? What does your everyday look like? What does it feel to be the type of person who is living that life? Getting to that energy, gaslight yourself into believing that it's already true. And my life has changed tremendously. It's amazing. I really have never been happier. And that's how I know I am secure. Not because I'm happy, but because of how peaceful it feels, how safe it feels, and how exciting it is that I know for a fact that I don't have to worry about tomorrow. God has already been in tomorrow. It even says so in the Bible, it's already provided for. Do not worry about tomorrow because tomorrow will have to worry about itself. It's already provided for. You don't have to worry. And the moment I learned to indulge in that being true, the more peaceful it's been. And instead of crying my eyes out, being completely inconsolable when I said goodbye to my boyfriend from Malaysia, I promised to tie it all back, didn't I? In a very long-winded way. I acknowledged that it made me upset that we're in long distance when we're so happy. I told them exactly how I feel. I let myself cry it out because I'm emotional. I'm not going to not cry if that feels right there and then. But also the most beautiful thing happen when you share vulnerably about exactly how you feel. When you're with the right person, the response will sound something like this. Because what he told me is that as much as it does suck to be in long distance and wishing we could be more together, there's nothing to be sad about really. And the reason is we're happier than we've ever been. We're staying together. We're choosing each other. There's really not a problem. It's only distance. And we're already gotten used to that. And it's true. We know that we have a goal to eventually be together. So just getting that reassurance in communication as opposed to someone who just cannot handle your tears whatsoever and is repulsed by it. That is what I experienced before. But this is not what I'm experiencing now. And that is also how I know I am secure. I am attracting security and safety and someone with the intention of calming me down and not trigger me more because my feelings do not intimidate them. So it's great. It's great. It feels amazing. I have been vomiting words for, I don't even know how long I've been doing this for. I'll figure that out later. But it was kind of nice just sitting here chatting, reflecting on it all. I am so proud of that girl in 2016 who dared go on that journey to really see the worst parts of herself and recognize that this is not so flattering and to actively redeem herself That's my 20-year-old self. When I was 20 years old, that's when I started my intentional self-help journey. And boy, has it been painful. And it has been an ego death out of this world. And it's been fun. It's been exciting. I've done so much. I've traveled the world. I've seen a lot of things. I ate all the cuisines. I got the points from my airlines and hotels. And it brought me so many opportunities, and it gives me so much perspective. Man, are we privileged and unaware and naive in Norway. Oh, we have it so good. And the only way you know how good you have it is when you've seen those who doesn't have it like that. When you don't know your own privilege, you take a lot of things for granted and you ignore a lot of beautiful things around you. If I was going to say my favorite traits in people are people who are self-aware, have the ability to self-regulate, someone who knows how to repair, someone with agency and just authenticity, being real, being honest about who you are and being unafraid and unapologetic about it. I think it's really hard to be authentic. I am trying to be, but it is hard to be authentic, much harder than I realized. Because I do care about what people think sometimes, and I do find it hard to accept the fact that people are going to disagree with me and say mean things and leave terrible comments and comment on whatever the fuck didn't even know about myself. I don't like the idea of, receiving bad comments. It's kind of scary. Because it gets to me. I have 0 layers of protection for criticism. I have to go through that whole round of, okay, consider the source. It's a long process. Initially, I get pretty terrified and it takes me a while to snap out of it. But at the same time, I'm only human, my goodness. It's gonna be uncomfortable, but I'll learn to filter it out eventually. But authenticity is scary because your authenticity can be so intimidating to people. And I've been intimidated by people's authenticity before myself when I was envious of it. And now it's just so liberating in the moments when I really do lean in and just like go and let Maggie. Then it's great. But I get in my head too sometimes. It is what it is. I have a cycle. And some days are better than others. Anyways, I'm happy. I'm grateful. I'm peaceful. I'm safe. And I love that I get to do this. I love that you're a part of it. I love that you set aside time out of your day to listen to me yap about everything that I've learned once upon a time and reflecting around it. And I hope it brings value for you. I'm sure that it will. In some ways, it will. If you're looking for it and you're open to it and you are self-aware about whether or not you need it. Self-awareness is powerful and it's admirable to be able to look at yourself and recognize that you're not entirely all that shit, but you know where you're headed and you're intentional about it. And that is brave. Anyways, thank you so much for listening to my podcast episode today. Completely winging it, so it is all over the place. I hope you bear with it and stay curious and get to know yourself better.